Hello, and welcome to the Living Hopecast. We are really glad you're joining us today for what I think is going to be a pretty surprising conversation.
Oh, absolutely. It is. It's definitely a paradigm shifter.
Yeah. Today we are doing a deep dive into a specific message titled Gutsy Conversations with God. This was presented by Jeremy Payton on Sunday, February 1st, 2026 at Living Hope Community Church.
And right off the bat, I just want to say we're going to cover the highlights and really unpack the ideas here, but you really need to see the real thing.
Oh, for sure. There is absolutely nothing like watching the full message. We actually have the full video recording linked right down in the description. You can also find it on the Living Hope webpage, their YouTube channel, Facebook, and on the church app. So, definitely go check that out when you get a chance.
Because it tackles something we all think we understand, but we probably have it, completely backward.
Right. And that topic is worship. And I have to be honest, when I hear the word worship, my brain immediately goes to a very safe, very sanitized place.
Like a Sunday morning service.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm picturing like a dimly lit room, maybe some soft synthesizer music floating in the background. Everybody has their eyes closed, and we're all thinking these very holy, very polite thoughts. It's clean.
Yeah, it's the Instagram filter version of spirituality.
Right.
We tend to view worship as this purely intellectual or ethereal exercise where we basically leave our messy, actual humanity at the door. But the core premise Jeremy Payton lays out in this message is that true worship isn't about escaping your humanity at all.
It actually happens in a much messier, much more visceral place.
It happens in our guts.
Which, let's be real, sounds a little unrefined for a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Like, open your hymnals and engage your guts.
It does sound a little gross.
It does. But that's the hook of the whole message, really.
Yeah.
It starts with that famous passage in John chapter 4, verses 23 and 24. Jesus is talking to the woman at the well, and he says the Father is looking for people who will worship him in spirit and in truth.
And that is a phrase we have all heard 1,000 times. We just nod along to it. But we usually focus heavily on the spirit part because it sounds mystical and, elevated.
And we sort of just gloss over the truth part. Or, if we do think about it, we assume truth just means having the correct doctrine. Like, I am worshiping in truth because I have all the right theological facts in my head.
Exactly, like passing a pop quiz on the Bible. But the message points out that the original Greek word there is aletheia. And in this specific context, it doesn't just mean factually correct.
It means sincerity.
Sincerity and reality. It means the absence of a mask. It's about your insides, your actual raw emotions matching your outsides.
So matching the songs you're singing or the prayers you're praying.
Right. If you are standing there singing a song about having joy in your heart, but internally you are just seething with anger at your boss, or maybe you're drowning in apathy, you might be singing the right lyrics, but you aren't worshiping in aletheia.
You aren't worshiping in truth.
No, you're wearing a mask.
And that is, it's terrifying. Because I feel like 90% of my adult life is just wearing a mask. Someone asks, how are you? And I say, I'm fine. Meanwhile, the house is internally on fire.
We all do it.
We do.
Yeah.
So God doesn't want the PR version of us. He wants the unedited footage. And that leads us to the absolute star of this message, which is a Greek word that I promise you will never forget once you hear it.
Mostly because of how it sounds. The word is splagchna.
Splagchna. It honestly sounds like a sneeze and a cough happening at the exact same time.
It is not a pretty word. Jeremy actually describes it in the message as the mutant love child of SpaghettiOs and lasagna.
Or, and I think this is the most accurate description, the sound of dropping a wet piece of food on the floor. Splagchna.
It's so vivid. But what we are actually talking about here literally is your guts, your bowels, the actual physical entrails deep inside your torso.
Okay, so why in the world is the Bible using a word for intestines to talk about high-level spiritual connection?
Because we have to step out of our modern framework and into the ancient world. Today, if we want to talk about deep emotion, we point to our chest, right? We say, I love you with all my heart.
Or if we talk about logic, we point to our brain.
Exactly. But in the ancient Greek mindset, they didn't associate those deep, intense, uncontrollable feelings with the heart.
They didn't.
No. They believed that feelings like absolute terror or extreme elation or disgust or deep love, they believed those originated in the gut. The splagchna.
Wow.
So if an ancient Greek person wanted to be truly romantic and say, I love you with all my heart, the literal translation of what they'd say is, I love you from my bowels.
I am definitely trying that next Valentine's Day. Darling, I love you from my bowels.
It lacks a little poetic flair in English, doesn't it?
Just a little.
But the underlying point is profoundly important. The guts represent the deepest, most uncontrollable part of who we are. It's where you feel that physical punch when you get awful news, or where you feel that flutter when you're really excited.
Right. It's that visceral reaction you literally cannot fake.
And the message connects this Greek concept perfectly to its Old Testament counterpart, which is the Hebrew word kerev.
Now, this is the part of the deep dive that actually stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah.
Because I have read this specific verse a million times, and I have no idea.
It's Zephaniah 3.17. The verse says, "The Lord your God is among you." And that phrase, "among you," is the English translation of kerev.
But the literal meaning of kerev.
It means in your guts, in your entrails.
So it's not just God is in the room with us. It's the Lord your God is in your guts.
Exactly. The rest of the verse says, he saves, he rejoices, and he sings. And where does he do that? He does it right there, in the kerev, in the splagchna.
That is wild.
It changes everything. Jeremy draws this incredibly stark contrast between two places we try to meet God. On one hand, you have the library of the mind.
Oh, I live in the library of the mind. That is my safe space. It's quiet, it's organized. The books are alphabetized by author.
It's rational. It's very respectful. We feel safe in the library because we can control the ideas. We can present God with these perfectly formed, theologically sound sentences.
But the argument here is that while God certainly enjoys our minds, the place where real transformation happens isn't the library.
No, it's the dumpster of the guts.
See, and that is where you lose me. I do not want to go to the dumpster.
Nobody does.
The dumpster is smelly. It's messy. It's where I throw the stuff I don't want anyone else to see. My jealousy, my bitterness, my totally irrational doubts. My first instinct is always clean that up before you pray. Don't bring the trash to God.
And that is the fundamental misunderstanding we almost all share. We assume holiness means cleanliness, so we try to sanitize ourselves before we even dare approach God.
Right.
But the revelation of Zephaniah 3.17 is that God is already in the dumpster. He is waiting in the mess. He isn't tapping his foot waiting for you to finish organizing the library. He's waiting for you to just open the lid on the dumpster.
He's waiting in the trash. That totally shifts how we should approach a Sunday morning.
It really does. Jeremy uses this fantastic analogy in the message of the guest versus the toddler.
Yes, because we all know the guest.
The guest is that persona we bring to church, put together, polite, hair combed, shoes tied, yes please and no thank you. The guest never makes a scene and is hyper worried about what everybody else is thinking.
But God doesn't want the guest.
No, he wants the toddler. Think about a toddler running into a room to see their dad or mom. They might have scraped knees, dirt on their face, snot running down their nose. They are a complete disaster.
Total chaos.
But they are entirely uninhibited. They are completely true. They just want to be held. That toddler energy is where Aletheia lives.
I think the hardest part of this for me, and I bet for a lot of you listening, is dealing with the really messy stuff mentioned in the message. Because it's not just about being sad. The message specifically lists things like anger or even apathy.
Apathy is a tough one.
It is that feeling of, I just don't care about anything right now. Or distraction, like standing in worship thinking, I really hope this service ends before the football game starts.
And that is the terrifying level of honesty that splagchna actually requires.
Right. Because if I say that out loud to God, if I say, God, I am bored and I just want to watch football, I feel like lightning is going to strike the roof of the building.
But the message challenges us to actually consider God's perspective for a second. Do we genuinely think we can hide that from him?
Obviously not.
God already sees every wicked thought, every selfish intention, every horrible deed in the entire world. He is not scandalized by your boredom or your frustration.
There's that great line where Jeremy imagines God's internal dialogue saying, if you want to offend me or freak me out, you're going to have to try a lot harder than that.
It changes the dynamic entirely. Instead of God wrinkling his nose in disgust at our guts, the message suggests God looks at that raw honesty, even when it's ugly, and says, I love your guts.
I love your guts. I love the double meaning there. He loves the bravery it takes to show them, and he loves the actual messy insides of who you are.
Exactly. He leans in. He doesn't pull away.
But, and I want to push back on this just a little bit, is this just a modern feel-good interpretation of worship? Or is there actual biblical weight to this idea that God requires our insides?
It is a very fair question. And this is where Jeremy takes us all the way back to Leviticus, the theology of sacrifice. And honestly, this part gave me a whole new appreciation for those dense, bloody chapters of the Old Testament.
Yeah, usually my eyes completely glaze over when we start talking about animal sacrifices. But the detail he pulls out here is fascinating.
So he highlights 3 specific sacrifices where the internal organs, the guts, were the central focus. And we need to really picture this to understand the weight of it. First, you have the ola, or the burnt offering.
It was sort of the foundational sacrifice.
Right. It means that which ascends. But there was a unique rule for this one. Before the animal could be offered on the altar, the entrails and the legs had to be washed with water.
Okay, so pause. You are literally taking the physical guts out of the animal and washing them.
Yes, you have to expose the insides, physically handle them, and wash them with water before they can be offered to God. You cannot offer them hidden and dirty. You literally have to spill your guts to get them clean.
That's a very visceral image.
Huh.
But it makes perfect sense. You can't hide the mess if you're actually going to offer it.
Exactly. Then there was the chatat, which is the sin offering. This was specifically for unintentional sins. In this ritual, the organ fat and the kidneys were considered God's specific portion to be burned on the altar.
So the guts literally belong to God.
They did. And the third one is the shalemim, or the fellowship offering. The word comes from shalom, meaning peace or wholeness.
And this wasn't about apologizing for sin, right?
No, this was a spiritual banquet. The offerer actually sat down and ate the meat with God. It wasn't about saying, I'm sorry. It was about saying, we are good. We are together.
And how does the message connect these ancient rituals to us as Christians today?
It synthesizes them beautifully through Christ. The ola represents Christ's total, complete dedication. The chatat is his blood cleansing our inner pollution. And because of those two, we get to the shalamin. We get the communion meal. We actually get to sit at the table with him.
So bringing it all back to worshiping in spirit and truth. Worshiping in truth isn't about hitting the high notes or reciting the right creed.
Right.
It's about that internal alignment. The message says, if your guts are screaming, let your prayers scream.
That is the crucial takeaway. If you are screaming on the inside but whispering these polite, sanitized prayers on the outside, you are totally disconnected. You aren't in the kerev.
Right.
But if you let the prayer match the scream, that is where the cleansing actually happens. That is where you meet God.
But here's the practical problem. It's one thing to talk about worshiping with your guts. It's a completely different thing to actually do it when you're stressed out or panicked or just entirely numb. And this is where the theology actually crashes right into biology.
Yes.
Because the message shifts into talking about breathing exercises.
Which admittedly can seem like a sharp left turn. But it bridges the gap between the spiritual and the physical body perfectly.
Right, because I know some people hear breathing exercises and immediately think, okay, are we doing yoga now? Is this some new age thing? But Jeremy lays out a dual justification for this, one spiritual and one scientific.
On the spiritual side, he points out the linguistic connection. In Hebrew, the word for spirit, ruach, and the word for breath, neshima, are inextricably linked.
God breathed life into Adam.
Exactly. And in the New Testament, we see Jesus engaging in deep breathing or sighing at very pivotal moments. When he heals the deaf man, when he's standing at Lazarus' tomb, when he commissions the disciples, it's a physical expression of a deep spiritual reality.
And then on the science side, and frankly, I love it when faith and science high-five each other like this.
It's a brilliant connection. The message explains that breathing is the only function of the autonomic nervous system that we can consciously control. We can't just tell our hearts to slow down or tell our stomachs to digest food faster.
We'd all have great digestion if we could.
We really would, but we can control our breath. And by doing that, we basically hack the nervous system.
This is about the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve, yes.
Yeah.
Slow, deep belly breathing stimulates this nerve, which then sends a direct signal to the brain saying, we are safe. The emergency is over.
Wow.
It allows us to physically move from a state of fight or flight into a state where we can actually relate to God and to other people.
And here's the statistic from the message that absolutely blew my mind. 95% of the body's serotonin comes from the gut.
It's incredible, isn't it? Serotonin is that feel-good hormone. We usually think of it as a brain chemical, but it originates in the splagchna.
So when we engage the gut through deep breathing, we are physically facilitating a sense of peace and well-being.
We are.
There's that slogan Jeremy quotes the American Lung Association. When you can't breathe, nothing else matters. It's true physically, obviously, but it's just as true spiritually. If we are hyperventilating in anxiety, we can't worship in peace. We literally can't hear God.
Precisely. If your body is screaming danger, your spirit is going to have a really hard time saying peace.
So the message gives us a very practical way to apply all of this. It's not just, hey, go forth and have gutsy conversations. There's an actual method. He walks through a breathing prayer based on Psalm 56.3.
And it's so simple, which makes it incredibly usable. You can do it in the car, sitting at your desk, or right in the middle of a chaotic Sunday service.
The pattern is just inhaling while acknowledging the honest emotion, and then exhaling while affirming your trust in God.
Right. So, for example, you inhale thinking, when I am afraid, and you exhale thinking, I will trust in you, Lord.
But the real beauty of it is in the variable. You can swap the word afraid for whatever's actually in the dumpster that day.
Exactly. When I am exhausted, I will trust in you. When I am angry, I will trust in you.
Or even when I am excited. It doesn't always have to be a negative emotion. It's just about being true to what's in your guts.
And then the final step he mentions is gratitude. Psalm 100 verse 4 says to enter his gates with thanksgiving. The advice here is to find something incredibly simple. A really good cup of coffee, or maybe a tough stain that finally came out of a shirt.
Oh, that's the best feeling.
It is. And then visualize where Jesus is in that specific memory. It's about anchoring that gutsy honesty in the actual goodness of God.
It really moves worship from being a performance to being a genuine conversation. It takes all the pressure off. I don't have to perform for God because he's already in the messy dumpster with me.
Yeah.
And he's completely happy to be there.
That is the bottom line. The guest tries to impress God. The toddler just wants to be with God. And God is a good father. He picks up the toddler every single time.
So as we wrap up, here's something I really want you to chew on as you go about your day. We all have that one room in our internal house that we keep locked when company comes over. We all have that one emotion that feels too ugly or too irreverent to bring into church. What is that for you right now? Is it deep disappointment? Is it cynicism? Is it just sheer exhaustion?
And the really provocative question is, what would happen if, instead of shoving that deeper into the library stacks, you took it straight to the dumpster where God is actually waiting for you?
I have a feeling that is exactly where the real conversation starts.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for diving into this with us today. Again, please go watch the full message. It's called Gutsy Conversations with God by Jeremy Payton, presented on February 1st, 2026. The link is right in the description, and you can find it on the Living Hope app or website. It is absolutely worth your time.
It really is. You won't regret it.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive on the Living Hope Cast. We'll catch you next time.